is Ms. Joefield-Lovell. I thank you all so much for joining. What we're doing today is business writing. That will be our focus. Before we even talk about business writing, I just want to throw a question out there because I just want to get some engagement. I want to hear your voices. Of course, I can see your names on the screen, so I can call you by name. But what I want you to do is that I want to just think about this question and just give me some feedback. I just want one or two persons just to share with me what you're thinking. There is a place, there must be a place that you want to be, or you dream of going or dream of visiting at some point in time. Miss Jack would have mentioned earlier, she spoke about our programs, she spoke about your career choices and probably where you want to be right after high school. But what I'm interested in right now, and particularly before we start off the session, is there any particular place at all in the world that you would like to be or you would like to visit? Let's say it's a goal that you have to visit this particular place. So anyone, feel free. You just unmute your mic, tell us the name of the place, one, and tell us why you would like to visit that place. So she would like to visit Thailand. And Vanessa wants to visit Thailand. Thailand has a very rich culture, and I'm seeing Japan. And these places have very rich cultures. They have very unique practices. Of course, they're quite different to what we practice in Trinidad and Tobago. One more, do I see someone else sharing? Poland, all right. So very, very rich cultures, excellent choices this morning. And New York, I am seeing that you, of course, you're aspiring to visit countries where you can learn Dubai, where you can learn of different cultures. And of course, one of the key things to visiting even Korea, South or North Korea, I'm seeing as well in the chat, is that you need to understand how to communicate. You need to understand culture. And even though this morning we are talking about business writing, it may just connect, of course, to you having a position in an organization, and you may need to write to, let's say, a business partner in one of these countries. So it's very important to do the research and understand their culture before even starting to write that letter. I'm glad that you all would have shared. I get an understanding, some sort of feedback where you want to go. It gives me an idea that you're thinking beyond. And of course, you're thinking not just beyond Trinidad and Tobago, but you're thinking beyond the region. All right. So good. So let's start the presentation. I'm going to share my screen with you. We're going to look at PowerPoint. You'll be required to engage with me. First of all, understanding what is business communication, the importance of not just business communication, but specifically business writing. I know that you do writing now in school. You would have done essay writing. You're doing creative writing. You're doing so many different types of writing classes or writing courses, right? Types of business writing, and we're going to just take it, be a bit more specific, and we're going to talk about types of letters. I know at some point in time you will be required to write a letter, and you must know how to do this. Good. So tell me, have you had the opportunity to write a letter so far in school, while you're in school? Because I know we have fourth formers and fifth formers here. What are some of the types of letters you have completed so far in high school? So letters of invitation letters, okay. What about cover letter? So informal, good. So what about cover letters? Yes, the cover letters. Okay, good. Because I know at this point in time in your academic life, what may be most important to you right now is particularly crafting or developing or writing, let's say, a cover letter, because you may think of, let's say, getting a holiday job. And while you're thinking of that, of course, you may have to write a letter. So long ago, what was the main important tool, or the most important piece of document that we were required to bring to an organization when we, let's say we needed a holiday job, it would have been a cover letter. So basically, of course, the employer knows that you're not yet graduated, you have not yet graduated, so you do not have CXC passes, or you don't have any sort of qualifications or experience to show. So they will just ask you to just write a letter stating what position you're interested in, who you are, and so on. So I guess at this point in time, that would be probably the most important letter to you right now. But of course, we'll explore others and we will go through what is required probably for each, and we'll go through the structures of the different types of letters. So basically, we had the breaking ice session where we had everyone just share where they want to be, or their dream place, their dream vacation. And they said we didn't have why, but that is okay for now. Okay, so understanding business communication, being able to understand business communication or business writing, you would first need to understand communication. So communication, and I'm going to share a very, very simple definition for communication. And that definition is basically, it talks about sharing ideas, thoughts, and feelings. So if you have the opportunity, or when you have the opportunity rather, to write a letter, you will, of course, be sharing ideas. You'll be sharing your thoughts, your feelings, and you want to ensure that those thoughts and feelings are understood. So, of course, you need to ensure that you select the right words, ensure you have the right tone, and so on. But we'll speak about that in a little while. Good? So you want to understand what is communication is that, of course, you're writing or you're sharing this information. And, of course, because you want to be understood, you're going to select, as we just said, the right words. You're going to ensure that you have the right tone and so on. Great. So now that we understand communication and we understand what is required when it comes to sharing of ideas and so on, we are going to just look at this. The image on the screen gives us a greater understanding of communication. So I just want to explain this process that I have on the screen so that you understand when you send your communication out, or you send that letter out, what sometimes can happen. Good. So here we have the sender. You are sending a letter to your teacher stating that let's say you have a request, and you have a request of the teacher to write you a recommendation. So you're due to graduate, and you would like to have a recommendation, let's say, to enroll in your program. So let's say you applied for MLT, or you applied to do radiology, or let's say you applied to do bio for pre-med. But so they ask you to have your teacher write a letter of recommendation. So now, because you're no longer in school, you may not have access to your lecturer or your teacher, sorry, you would want to probably write the teacher, let's say, an email, but of course you write them a letter requesting that they prepare this letter of recommendation for you. So you're the sender in this case. So you're sending the information. So you put together this letter, you ask him or her to write you the recommendation. So you write the letter to your teacher. You're sending the letter probably via email, because we know email is what we use mainly now. You're not going to send it through the post because that is probably going to take too long. So you're going to send the email to the teacher asking him or her to write you a letter of recommendation. So when the teacher receives it, the teacher becomes the receiver. So the person receives this information, they receive your letter of request, and of course they're going to respond. So because you've been so great at school, the teacher is quite excited that you're pursuing further education, and they want to, of course, respond. So the teacher will now write this letter of recommendation, or straight away, or they may just respond to you saying, yes, Vanessa, yes, Emmanuel, yes, John, I am going to write you this letter of recommendation so that you can get into your school of choice. So now the receiver, your teacher, becomes the sender. So he or she is now going to send that letter of recommendation to you via email. And again, I say it's either via email, they may type it and print it, sign it, and they may ask you to come to the school to collect. But in this case, let's say they email it. They send you the email, so you would see the channel. There's a channel of feedback. You would have sent the email initially, the teacher receives it, and then now the teacher becomes the sender. So the teacher is now sending this information, that is the letter of recommendation, back to you. So we see the channel of communication just on the transactional model here. The teacher sends that letter back to you. So now you become the receiver because the information is now sent back to you. But while all the sending and receiving, while all that is happening, all the transmitting is happening, you have to be mindful that there are possible barriers to that communication. So like today, we started off with some barriers to communication. While we were on, we had some issues with the internet. Having issues with the internet, that can be considered noise or a barrier to communication. Because if we are unable to communicate, that means there's a barrier. That means there's something that is affecting the communication. Good? So in the case of sending the email, you may have sent the request, but you didn't hear anything. You haven't heard anything from the teacher, and you're worried, the deadline is approaching, and you want to know, well, why is Miss or Sir not responding? But probably what happened is that it went into their junk email. They probably didn't receive it. Probably you missed out just a little dot in their email. And because that happened, they weren't able to receive the information. So in a case like this, of course, you will try to email the lecturer again, or you'd probably try to get them on the phone and so on. And that is an example of a barrier to communication when you're trying to send your letter across, or you're trying to communicate to the lecturer. And the same thing can happen as well when it comes to the teacher sending you back that recommendation so that you can go to your school of choice. So what can happen too, very thing can happen. They can call, they can leave a message on your phone, you didn't receive it. So there's now a delay in you getting feedback because there was a break in communication, there was a barrier, there was noise. And we call all these things noise or barriers to communication. All right. So being able to understand this will help you to appreciate business writing and writing more. So when you send your information, because business writing, of course, it involves writing or crafting this message that you're going to send to someone. So it can be to send to your boss, send to probably your colleagues in the office also. And of course, you need to understand what can possibly happen and possibly happen, to let's say, impact the success of your communication. All right. This video presentation, I'm going to show it to you at the end instead of showing it to you now. All right. So understanding communication, understanding how business communication works and how it can be affected is critical to the communication. All right. So now I have on the screen 4 types of business communication. But before we even examine the 4 types, I want to probably get some idea from you. And again, you can type. You can keep typing in the chat. We'll keep checking the chat. All right. So you could just keep giving that feedback as we go along. So we're talking business communication. I know that you're in 4th form and 5th form. Can you give us, share with us like a definition or what you think, just anything about business communication? Anyone? Feel free to share. So I see Faith, I see Manuel, I see Camelia. Yes, I want to hear you. Tell me, what do you think is business communication? Because you're here today to do business writing, right? I want to see smiles. All right, so let me share with you just a small or simple sort of definition. So business communication is any communication that occurs can happen within an organization, of course, externally. But once it facilitates business. So we can leave that as a short, simple definition. So any communication that facilitates business, or let's say the success of a business, it could be a success of a business transaction, let's say a business as an organization, an establishment. Yeah. So we can accept that as a simple definition when it comes to business communication. So the 4 types that we're seeing on the screen right now would be internal upward business communication. So let's say, for example, you're working at, Nestle or even National Flour Mills. So you want to communicate. So we're talking internal upward. So it's from the subordinates. So let's say you are a technician there, or let's say you're working in graphic design, or you're working in, let's say, just the production line, and you need to communicate with, let's say, to the manager. So you are now writing upward. So we call this internal upward business communication, where you write a letter to your boss, you write a letter to your supervisor, so it's upward. So that is just one type. So that's one. Then we have the second type. As you can see on the screen, it's internal downward communication. So the manager wants to write a memo, let's say. So it doesn't always have to be a letter or an email. So let's say it's a memo. So your boss wants to write a memo to you, to the subordinates. So the manager, the boss, or the director, let's say, of the company, they are now writing to you, the technical officer, or you, let's say, the line supervisor, or that person who is managing graphics design, or that person who is managing the communication, the corporate communications department. So you have that person, they're writing them, so they send a memo down to that person. And then we move to the third bit that we have on the screen. That would be among employees. So let's say we had an organization here today. Let's just say. So let's just create, let's say, an organization. So we have the school. So let's say you're working within this organization. You're all working together. And let's say Faith needs to send a correspondence to Denicia. That will be internal lateral. So it's the people on the same level with you. Got that? Yeah. So once you're sending that business correspondence, you are sending it to the person on the same level with you. So it's not upward and it's not downward. It must be the people on the same level with you among companies, people within the company. Good. And then we have the final bit there, external. So external parties, these are people outside of your organization. So for example, your school, it would now mean people outside of your school. It would mean now people outside of Nestle, or outside of National Flour Mills, or outside of TV6. So if I'm writing the letter or the correspondence, the business communication is coming to someone within the organization, we say that's internal lateral, and external is me writing from TV6 to National Flour Mills, or from COSTAATT to, let's say, ACTT, the Accreditation Council of Trinidad and Tobago. All right, so that is external. Good. So those would be the 4 types of business communication that you will be involved in when you graduate from school and you're out there in the world of work. This, at some point in time, you will be involved in this, any of the 4 types that we mentioned of business communication. Good. Do you have any questions? So we're talking about ways to clearly, when it comes to writing. So we're talking ways to communicate clearly with writing communication. So the first point that I have on the screen is identify and clearly state your goals. So in the first paragraph, you're going to include what you really want to say, or identify the reason for this letter. So there are several types of letters. So if you're writing a letter of complaint to the manager, so that's upward, right? You will, in the first paragraph, you need to state clearly what is your goal. Your intention is to request. Do you want to request something? So let's say you're working in an organization and you want to request, let's say, some chemicals to do something. Or you want to request some car parts to do something. Let's say you're working at Toyota. You clearly state in the first paragraph there, what is your goal? And you need to identify, of course, the purpose for writing and so on. You need to ensure, secondly, that you use the right tone. So you're writing to your manager, of course, there's a particular tone, and especially when you're writing business-wise, you need to consider your tone. You cannot be too expressive. You don't want to be too emotional. And of course, a one word of caution here is that you do not want to write text lingo. So you don't want to see you and thank you as T, TY. We're not going to use that at all. So in business communication, we want to ensure, and some of you mentioned before, that you would have done informal letters. We are talking formal communication because this is business writing. You're going to use the right tone. You're going to address your colleague. You're going to address them by their, and you use their surname. And of course, we're going to get into that a bit later, how we address them. But you need to use the right tone because you do not want to communicate the wrong message. You do not want them to misinterpret you. You do not want to transfer your emotions into the piece of writing. So even if you're upset, let's say Chanel, Miss Connell, let's say she's upset and she needs to write to Camellia for some reason. And if she needs to write to Camellia, I said, see you laughing. Yes, if you have to write to Camellia, you don't want to, yes, you're upset with what Camellia did, but you do not want your emotions to transfer into the letter. You're asking to meet with Camellia. Let's say you're HR Chanel. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Let's say you're writing to Camellia as HR. So you're writing from top down, right? You're writing to Camellia and you want to say, well, Camellia, of course, you want to request a meeting with her because you want to discuss probably something that she did. And of course, it wasn't pleasant. So because it's not pleasant, you have to be careful, Chanel, how you choose your words, right? So you want to be, and I always say, have someone proofread it. Because sometimes we are so caught up with our emotions, we're upset and we want to express how we feel straight away. But sometimes we need to take a step back and consider the words and, of course, the meaning of the words that we use. So that's 2. 3, you want to keep it simple. We don't want to use too many, as we would say, simply big words. We don't want to use let's say, too much jargon, as we would say. So we want to be careful as we select the words and how we write the sentences. I know now that we have a lot of IA programs. So we say, okay, let's ask the artificial intelligence what to do. And I know that some of you are into IT, so you're familiar with what I'm saying. You would type it in and the AI will give you a very nice document or a very nice sentence. And you think, yes, this is a great sentence to use. But what tends to happen is that it's going to be, it may be a bit too complicated. And then the person may even ask, I wonder if this person wrote this. So don't practice using AI. This is just something on the side and so on when it comes to business communication, because sometimes it takes the human element out of the communication, out of the piece of writing. So try to keep it simple. Number 4, stay on topic. If Faith is writing Denicia or Emmanuel a letter on, I want to request, let's say I want to request a driver to head all the way down to Toko to do a career fair. Don't go off topic, because the main reason for me writing this is to request transportation, to request the bus or the van to go take the students down to Toko. So stay on topic. This is what it is. Don't add too many other things to the letter or to that business correspondence. Stay on topic. If you need to write 3 letters, because it's in an email, you may be able to transition to another idea or another topic in your email by saying on another note. So you mentioned something. Let's say you were talking about, let's say, for example, you were talking about late coming or something. And then you want to transition into something else, but it's related, but it may not be directly related to late coming. But then you may say, just to make sure the transition is there, and of course, I know you do that in your essay writing, you would say on another note, and you make it flow. But when you're writing your business correspondence, your letter, whatever, it doesn't matter, ensure you stay on topic. And 5, you want to use the active voice. And this is something that we tend to have a challenge with in schools, when persons are writing, when we are writing, we are doing our essays and different things, you want to ensure that is the active voice. And I know that you would have, I see some of you smiling, so I guess probably your teacher would have told you about this before, and you have an idea of what it is. So can someone tell me, or if you ever heard of the active voice? You can type in the chat as well. Emmanuel, I'm not seeing you. And John, Natasha, Savannah, can you turn on your cameras for us so that we can see you? Right. Great. Thank you so much.
Ms.
Good.
Joefield, you have a question in the chat. Sharona would like to know, are we writing the letter today?
Yes, you will be given the opportunity to write the letter today. Great.
I just want to remind everyone, Ms. Joefield, that I don't know if you remember that Ms. Hazard said that whoever writes the best letter gets the opportunity for a 1-week internship when school closes in December.
Great, thank you for that.
Think about that incentive, guys.
Yes. Thank you so much for that reminder, Ms. Jack. And yes, that is a great opportunity, a 1-week internship in December. That would be wonderful. And of course, this is something that you can use on your resume after school. Good, lovely. So active voice, have you ever heard of the term active voice? I'm just writing in the chat. I want someone to write in the chat. And if you haven't, I'm sure you have, you can Google it right now. And I want you to share with us. So I'm going to give you just about a minute or two just to do that. And I'm going to talk about number 6. So we're going to go back to number 5. Good? Because I know by now you would have heard of the active voice. Good? So number 6, while you think about number 5, have someone proofread your writing. This is very critical because sometimes, as you know, while you're preparing for CXCs, while you're preparing, let's say, a project, you would realize if you look at a document for too long, sometimes you almost see what is not there. Your eyes fool you sometimes. So I know what I want to say. So in that, with that, I will be reading as though it is there, but the word is not there. So it is always good. It's a good idea to have someone proofread your document. So while you're working in an organization, you may have an assistant, you may have someone over you if you want your boss to have a look. That is a very good practice. Ensure that someone else proofreads your writing because you want to eliminate or you want to minimize the number of mistakes, number of errors, grammatical errors, punctuation, and things like that. Just basic things. You want to ensure that, of course, your writing is either free or just is minimal when it comes to these errors. All right. So is anyone ready with the use of the active voice for me? I will start calling names, All right. So I can't see you, Aliyah. And Melanie, you just went off for a bit, but Aliyah, we can't see you. All right, so number 7, this would be under number 8, and then I go back to number 5. I'm not going to forget number 5. Make it easy to read and scan. So now in this digital age, you want to make sure now you may have a digital signature. It's critical that you have a digital signature. In Trinidad and Tobago, we're actually playing catch up with the rest of the world with certain things. Quite a number of people are working remotely and they are required to sign documents. So even though you are working remotely, you can't say to the person or the business partner, I cannot sign the document because I am working from home or I'm on a business conference. That is not an excuse. All right. Make sure that it is, and when we say scan, that is it. It's ready to scan, to send, to be able to send it to the individual. And you must be able to affix your signature, but ensure that it is easy to read. And not just easy to read when it comes to the words you choose, the tone and the language, but more so with the font. You want to ensure it is easy on the eyes. Ensure that it is easy to read. The font is not too small. It's not too fancy. One time, let me just share this with you. A young lady wrote a resume. Well, she wrote a cover letter, actually. She crafted this cover letter and she sent it. And I was looking at the cover letter, and the entire cover letter, students, it was typed in italics. So all these curly, fancy writing, and for those of you who are into graphic design, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. It was very, very difficult to read, extremely difficult. So I want to caution you as you prepare for the world of work that you do not use these different fonts. Yes, they may look very attractive, but more so for advertising or doing different things, but not for a business correspondence. And the final bit is to be professional. Dear, and you have the person's name, dear Mr. John, dear Miss Lala, dear Mr. Timothy, dear Miss Hiralal, you need to be professional. And of course, when you close it off, and we're going to just look at the structure of the letter shortly, you need to ensure that you address the person appropriately. Your language, and as I mentioned before, do not use text lingo. Do not use shorthand. You need to write your words out full. You don't want any sort of shorthand. And you want to avoid things like I've done that, instead of saying I have completed the project. I've completed the project. You want to just limit those in your writing. All right, good. Let's go back to our little bit about active voice. So who wants to share? I'm sure by Google.
Vanessa Ratiram in the chat says the noun or pronoun that acts as the subjects in the sentence.
All right, Vanessa. Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Who wants to add to what Vanessa said when it comes to the active voice? Do you have an example? Anyone? Or support Vanessa? Silence. No. Okay, I'm going to start calling names.
Right, so Natasha Hilaire says active voice clearly identifies who is performing an action.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing. Good. Do we have a third to share? No. Melanie, I think probably what you can do is that, thank you all so much for sharing, but writing in the active voice is, I know that you at this stage, you would have that exposure, and your teacher probably would tell you, of course, to write in the active voice, because when I started talking about it, I saw some of you smiling and understanding, and I'm glad that you were able to Google and just get bits and pieces and share what it involves. But ensuring that you write your correspondence in a way that, of course, is clear, that is understandable, it is ensure that it is brief as well, and you want to ensure too that the message that you're sending is a message that you intend. Sometimes, as we mentioned with the proofreading bit of it, so you include the active voice, you include all of that, but then you may want to ask someone to read it and ask them what is their interpretation of the correspondence. So we want to keep it simple, keep it basic, but it may be simple and basic to Miss Timothy. Is it Tizan? Tessan? Am I pronouncing it well? But Miss Timothy, right? Is that okay? Right. So it may be clear to you because you crafted the piece of writing. But then when you send it, of course, to Melanie now misinterprets, or Melanie doesn't understand because of probably the words that were used. Probably it's too complicated, probably sophisticated. The word, the tone was not appropriate. And you want to be very careful with that. Good. So now I'm going to just show you a quick video. Do we have any questions though? Any questions? I'm just going to stop share for 2 seconds. Any questions so far? And yes, you will have the opportunity to write your letter. And I'm very excited. I can't wait to see what you produce at the end of our workshop today.
Just a reminder, Ms. Joefield, students, you all will need to email that letter to Mrs. Joefield-Lovell.
Yes.
And the best written letter will get the internship for 1 week in December. We are not hearing anything from the gentlemen in the class. So
yes,
I hope that
Jack.
going forward, we would hear from John, from Emmanuel.
Yes, John and Emmanuel, the males. I'm not hearing the males in my class. All right, so good. So I'm just gonna share a short video with you. It just gives an overview of the business communication, and then we're gonna go through just quickly the video, and then we're gonna go through the how you actually put this letter together. All right, so it's coming up right now. All right, so I'm sharing right now. It should be loading. All right, be sure that your audio is on.
Effective business communication is more than just a tool for increased sales and profits. It's the heart of a successful company. In this video, we will cover what business communication entails and why it is so important. Let's get right to it. From conversations between agents and clients to the exchange of ideas between management and C-level executives, business communication is everywhere. Poor communication, however, can lead to customer and employee frustration, increased turnover rates, and lost business. But good communication leads to creative solutions, novel ideas, increased loyalty, and overall success. Business communication takes many forms, from emails and video calls to social media and instant messaging. It's not just about the tools we use, but how we use them. There are four main types of business communication: upward, downward, lateral, and external. Each plays a crucial role in the functioning of a business. Let's go over each of these in more detail. Upward communication is a type of internal business communication where a company employee reaches out to a higher up to exchange information, solicit feedback, share ideas, or communicate with their superior in any other way. Upward communication usually occurs within a department, but it can be interdepartmental in some circumstances. Downward communication is a form of employee communication that takes place when an upper-level employee communicates with someone who is under their authority or otherwise below them in the company hierarchy. Downward communication is essential to avoiding confusion between employees and helps make management's expectations of employees clear. Lateral communication is a verbal or nonverbal exchange of information that occurs between coworkers who are at the same or on similar levels within the corporate hierarchy. Lateral communication can occur within the department or across departments and is often collaborative in nature. Lateral communication builds trust amongst employees, allowing them to compensate for each other's blind spots and weaknesses. External business communication is the exchange of information between employees and persons outside of the organization, such as clients, potential customers, partners, or contractors. It is generally what most people think of when they hear the term business communication. External communication is vital for business growth and sustainability as it builds engagement, trust, and most importantly, loyalty amongst the company's consumer base and outside partners. But why is business communication so important? Well, basically, it improves engagement, streamlines information, connects remote workers, and increases satisfaction among both employees and customers. And let's not forget about company culture. Good communication fosters a positive environment where everyone feels heard and valued. Setting up a business communication strategy may seem daunting, but it starts with identifying your goals and the problems you wish to solve. Remember, effective communication is key to a successful business. If you found this video informative, give it a like, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell below to keep up with our journey to simplify the VoIP world. Till next time, this is Nate from Get VoIP.
All right, so we heard Nate on types of business communication and how it goes. Just in case you missed anything that I said before, of course, you were able to pick up some additional information from what he was saying. Do we have anyone in the class who is pursuing business and they expect to open or establish or set up their own business after school? Any one person, you could just type in the chat, because understanding business communication is very important when you're setting up your own business. Well, it's overall, it is very essential, but more so when you are setting up your own business. And yes, Emmanuel is saying yes. So this is going to be a very important part of your setup. As you set up your business, you want to think about how are you going to communicate. And of course, things are changing now. Thank you, Tunisia and others for sharing. Yes, once you are setting up your business, of course, from the get-go, you need to ensure that you have that communication bit of it sorted out, or making sure that you communicate well during your setup, and of course, as you try to maintain market share in the business arena. Good. So now we're going to just talk about the actual format of the business correspondence. Right? You want to look at specific things. You have formal letters and informal letters. You mentioned before that you already would have engaged with, or you had experience with, informal letters. Now we're going to talk a bit about the informal, not informal, sorry, but formal letters, because you have an idea of that part of it already. So with the formal letters, I'm going to share with you the structure that you can use when doing or crafting your business letter, right? So I'm going to share the screen with you. 1 second, it's coming up. So while the screen is loading, I just feel free to share your questions, of course, in the chat. It would be nice to hear the voices. Miss Jack, I see the males, they're now giving feedback. So that is lovely.
Well done, young.
Yes. All right, great. We're now going to look at the structure, and it's going to show you exactly how you should do certain things. All right, so it may be a bit, hopefully it's not too small for you. All right, so I'm going to share now. All right, when you're doing your letter, you need to ensure that you adhere to a particular structure. You want to ensure that you have the correct dates. Let me just ensure 1 second that you can all see the screen. Great. So you want to ensure that you can see that you have a date. Oh, sorry. That you have a date, a return address. They're basic things that we need to, and then I'm going to actually show you a letter. All right. So first of all, you have at the very top of the letter, on the top of the page, you will have the return address at the very top. So from a business perspective, you may have the letterhead. So on the letterhead, you'll see the company's name. So let's say it's Superior's grocery store, Superior's internet company, or Superior's access to communication. You will see the name of the company usually at the very top of the letter where you have the letterhead. So say you have the name of the company, and then you have the address of the company. Number 5, Picton Street, Porter Spade. Number 10, Chaguanas Main Road, Endeavor, flat, whatever. You make sure and include the address. So the company's name, the address, and of course you need to include a date. On this, with this structure, you can see here a zip code, a state. Of course, we can see clearly that this is a structure that is used in North America, because we do not have zip codes. We do not have states. What we have would be cities. So we can say Port of Spain and so on. And in some instances, they would say like Scarborough. Right? So you ensure that you have that bit at the very top, right after the return address. So the return address is my address. So let's say I'm sending an email to your school, for example. So I'm sending a letter from COSTAATT, Melville Lane in Port of Spain, and I'm going to put on the letterhead, I will have COSTAATT, and then I'll have Melville Lane the number on Melville Lane, and then I'll have Port of Spain. So that is the return address, because I'm the one sending it to you. I'm the sender, and of course, if you have to return, it comes back to COSTAATT. Good? And feel free at any point in time to stop me if I'm going along too quickly. All right, guys? Good. So you have that, and then right after that, what follows would be the date. You want to ensure that you put the date. Again, we have different formats for the date. I'm going to show you that after. There are different formats. So then you may have someone, they may put today's date. So we have today being the 3rd of October. So you may have the 3rd October 2023. You actually put the number 3 October 2023. And then you may have someone else who may put the 3rd, of course, and then they may put the day, Tuesday, October 2023. But ideally, what we practice usually, and each organization will have their own culture, be mindful of that with how they craft correspondences. Although there's a standard way of doing things, each organization will have their own little culture of how they do things. Most times what we see, and what is common is that you put the third, number 3, to third, number 3, and then you put October, you put your, of course, you punctuate your commas, 2023. And what I would like to, I'm not sure if that is possible, if you can possibly, when you send me your letters, or even before sending me your letters, what I can do is that today I can possibly get your email addresses. So I don't know if you have like a school email address, and we can probably send you, or I could probably send it to the teacher. So Ms. Hazard may be able to I may be able to just send the handout of how the letter should be structured, and I can send it to Ms. Hazard, and of course she can get it onto your teacher and so on, and then we move from there. All right?
Yeah.
So
yes,
then you
sure.
have the date. Great, thank you so much. Then you have the date. So we just spoke about the date. And then we're talking the inside address. Remember, I am the sender. I am sending you the letter from COSTAATT. But the sender is the person who, my address will be the return address. I am sending to you from COSTAATT. You have the date, which is the 3rd of October, and then we have the inside address, which is your address. So we need to have the recipient, who I am writing to. Let's say I'm writing to Ms. Hazard. So I will put her name at the top and try your very best to get the appropriate, or whether the person is Miss or Mrs. You need to be very careful. If the person is a doctor, you want to be able to ensure that you address them appropriately. If you're writing a letter to the Prime Minister, you're not going to just put Mr. or Mrs. if you're writing to the President. You know that they have, of course, you need to ensure that you use their office. You need to ensure to use, you actually address them properly. If it's a doctor, you want to be able to say that. If the person is a Mr., address them likewise. And also if it's Mrs., ensure. So it's good to know, especially I want to add here too, when you're doing your cover letters to send out to apply for a job, it will be, it shows to the employer that you've done some research. If you go ahead and you find out the name of the person you need to address the letter to, that is critical. Knowing who you have to address the letter to. So, of course, if you know it's me, then you can put Mrs. Sharleen Joefield-Lovell, senior lecturer, and then you put COSTAATT, right? And then, of course, you put number 7 to number 10, Melville Lane, Port of Spain, Trinidad. Good? So let me go that again. Your inside address, I don't know if you're taking notes right now. I'll just slow it down a little bit. Sorry, did someone say something? I thought I heard. Okay. All right. The inside address, as we said, that's the person who's going to receive the letter. I'm sending a letter to, let's say, to Miss Jack. It would be, I'm sending it to Miss Jack. I will find out her correct designation. I'm going to find out her office. What is her position?
Secretary, repeat what you say, please. We get moved out.
All right. Oh, okay. Sure. No problem. All right. So should I go again from the inside address? Yes?
Miss.
No, I didn't hear that. Say again. From the date? Okay, good. All right. Sure. No problem. All right. So we're doing the inside address. Remember, I am the person who would have sent the address, sent the letter, sorry. My address is going to go first. Oh, I see Vanessa. Okay. My address is going to go first. That would be the return address. And then I'm going to put the date, and we're going to do the inside address. So with the inside address, we are going to, let's say I'm sending it to Denicia Dionorine. So we are sending it to Miss Denicia Dionorine, and she's the principal. We put the principal of which school. Then we're going to put the address of that said school. Good? Is everybody okay so far with that structure? Any questions? Anything you want me to clarify or to repeat? You could just shake your head, yes, no, because then we know the audio is problematic. Are we okay, guys, so far? Yes. All right, good. Lovely. Good. So now we have, of course, we have done we have that all the addresses in place, we have the date in place, and now, of course, we're going to move to the salutation. Who are we sending this letter to? Dear Mr. John, dear Miss Dookie, who are we sending the correspondence to? All right, thank you so much for your patience. So now we have resumed our session and we are just going to complete the structure of the letter. We are on to the point where we will just about to talk about the salutation. Dear Miss Lal, want to ensure, as I mentioned earlier on, that you have the person's designation. You want to make sure that you're addressing them properly or appropriately, more so. So if the person is probably your friend, you're gonna, of course, you're going to address them differently. This is a business correspondence, and this is what we've been talking about. We were talking about business communication. So you must have dear Mr. Smith, dear Mr. Jane, and so on, of course, before you start the body of your letter. So of course, as you do with your essay writing, you have an introduction, you have the body, and then you have a conclusion. It's the same with the letter, the formal letter. You want to ensure that you state the purpose of the letter. Remember, I mentioned that before. Make sure that it is clear and concise with more than one paragraph. So you're not going to put a letter and the end or craft a letter and the entire letter is one paragraph. You ensure that you can see, you can identify the paragraphs. So you may have like about at least three paragraphs. So you have your introduction and you have your body and of course a bit of a conclusion. The closing here, you want to say probably sincerely, respectfully, best regards. But for best regards, we usually use this when we're sending out like emails. So we have emails, and we have warm regards and so on, but we don't really put it in a letter, like a business letter. So you would probably say sincerely, because this is somebody that you're acquainted with, and of course, you're in communication with them. So you can use sincerely, and you are writing, let's say, for example, in your position now as a student, you're writing to your teacher, you will use respectfully and not sincerely. All right. But since we're just talking about business communication, mainly preparing you for the world of work, you want to maintain the sincerely and of course probably best regards with the email, with the if you're sending an email to someone that you know pretty well, you would want to really use best regards. Yours truly also can be used. What is critical though is that you ensure that you leave a space for signature, because we want to ensure that, of course, this was sent by this particular person. And again, we know with all the advancement with technology, you want to ensure that you can identify that I would have sent this letter to Vanessa. So when Vanessa reads the letter, she would see my signature at the end. And before we mentioned about the digital signature, it's definitely wise for you to just, start practicing creating that digital signature. So you have it. But of course, you can do it as we usually do. We print the letter and we sign. So you leave a line. You put sincerely, you usually do a couple of spaces. Let's say about, three or four spaces. You press enter a couple of times, right? And then, of course, you put your line for signature. On the line for the signature, you want to put, of course, the name again. You type the name and you put the person's the designation, the person who's going to sign the letter. Good. So I'm going to sign the letter. My name is going to be there, Sharleen Joefield-Lovell, and typed. That's under the line that I've just signed on. And right under that, I put my designation there. Senior lecturer or project manager, principal, whatever the designation. Yeah, whatever the designation. And this really basically gives you the clear structure of how it should be, right? Any questions so far? I know that we had the break there, but any questions? Do you think that you can now structure a letter? If you're asked to structure a letter, at least, I hope you took some notes. But as I mentioned before, I will send the handout to your teacher so that each of you will have just a little handout to take away, and it can always be used as a reference. I will just probably just put an image up on the screen where you will see like a sample, and I will tell you exactly what sort of letter you're going to write. So it's going to be a letter of request. So it's a business letter, yes, but you're requesting some information. All right. So what I will do, I'll just 1 second. I'll just put this bit up on the screen. I want you now to pull up a Word document, a blank Word document, and get ready to type a letter. It's going to be a letter of request. We know we have different types of business correspondence. So the type that we're going to do is a letter of request. So make sure that you have your Word document, your blank Word document up. And I'm just going to project on the screen just a sample of so that you just have an idea. The letter that you're going to write today is a letter of request to your principal or to your teacher, asking them for a letter of recommendation to support your application to college or university. I'll be here, so if you feel that you need to ask a question, feel free. I'll be sitting right here. Thank you. Thank you all so much for participating. So now that we have completed our letters, I would like to ask you to share. You can just click at the bottom of the screen. Lovely. Okay, great. So let me just do that. All right, so we are seeing Camelia's letter. So Camelia is the one sending the letter from her address and so on. The number, I think number 100, that is probably going to be up here, I'm guessing, Camelia. It's going to be just before Bassa Hill, right? So the number should, I believe, the number should be at the top there, according to your address. And good, so we see the 3rd of October. So she has the format. There's a fully blocked style. And we have the principal. And I see Library Trace 102. That should also be further up. So just where you have the principal, Siparia West Secondary, and you should put the number. I'm not sure if it's a lot number, if that is how your address goes. But if it was like a number of the building or the house, you should put it a bit further up in the address, just as for your the sender's address. All right, good. Okay, go down. So can you just take it down a bit for us there? Right, so you have dear Mr. Joe, and then you have, well, here where you have the colon, what we try to do is that we use just one, right? So you would probably just delete that one, and you can put dear Mr. Joe, and you can put comma or colon here, all right, just after Mr. Joe. Good. And she included a subject, a request for a letter of recommendation, So sometimes we can shorten it. So you can shorten it a bit and just say request for letter of recommendation. So it's a subject. So what you'd want to do too is that you can, of course, the subject can just go right after the address where the principal is. So we can put the subject and then we put dear Mr. Joe. All right. And two, so she has her body. Of course, I'm not going to go through the body. I'll read the body when she sends it to me. But ideally, we just want to make sure that she has that sort of structure we spoke about so that we can move on to others and give comments too. And we see 3 paragraphs here. So basically, let's see in the beginning. So she received an email. All right. And okay. Right. In the first paragraph, you want to be sure to say what you want. You'd like to request a letter of recommendation. And she actually said that in the first paragraph that she wants a letter of recommendation for the University of the West Indies to pursue further studies. And then in the second paragraph, she should have indicated the program. So she is now giving the principal some background information. The principal will be able to now, of course, add details based on the program that she selected. And then the third paragraph, then she rounds it up and she gives some information, and then she thanks the principal. And she would have put yours respectfully. And well, in the ideal case, she would have put her signature line, and of course she would have signed and then put Camelia Gill at the bottom of the signature line. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Camelia. Good, great. Who wants to share next? We still have some time, just probably let's for 2 more. I would love to hear one of my male students. All right, so Chanel, do you want to go? Who wants to go next? Vanessa, Faith. Okay, let me just see. the names Melanie, Denisha, Aliyah, and the cameras are out. Don't forget to keep your cameras on. So who's going to share next? We have a couple more minutes and we can at least entertain 2. Would you like to read it or would you like to just project it on the screen?
Just now.
Faith wants to read. Okay, great. So Faith, we're ready whenever you are. You have just about 9 minutes to conclude. Go ahead, Faith. Let's see if your mic is on. Okay, all right. Do you want to scroll up a bit more for us? Oh, that's the top. Go up a bit more. Okay. All right, I see that you would have put number 89 Orchard Drive. This would be your address there. Good. And then you have the 3rd of October, and you have the principal's name, where the school is, and then, of course, you addressed it to him. Right here, it's not mandatory to put the full name of the person here. So what you can do, you can always just put Dear Mr. Ali or Dear Dr. Ali instead of putting the person's the entire name, all right? And then again, we said about the subject, so sure, requesting a letter of recommendation for my college application. All right, okay, we see an introduction there. You said the school and you asked, you stated clearly what the request was about. Good. And you gave, of course, some credit to the principal there about academic leadership and so on. Good. And then we had the second paragraph. You spoke about some things about the school and what you witnessed, what you experienced. Good. And then the third paragraph, wow. Well, we see a deadline. A deadline is we highlighted here. We see a deadline for the application. And that too, that's a good thing to include because you don't want the teacher or the facilitator, principal to take a long time to complete and then your application deadline passes and then you do not, you miss the opportunity to apply. So this is good that you included, of course, a deadline. And then on the very last paragraph, she would have included, she thanked them for considering her request. And of course, she also included her number. And that is very good too. Because including your number would allow them, of course, to make contact with you if there's anything they need to clarify. I mean, as your teacher, they should know your full spelling of your name, correct spelling, and different things like that. Yeah. And then at the very end, of course, she closed off. She said, yes, respectfully, and very good that you have respectfully in common. You started it off with a common letter. Sometimes people put capital R, but that is incorrect. So it's yours respectfully, and then you put your comma, and of course, Faith Dookie, and then of course you would have put your signature line in the ideal situation. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Faith. All right. Okay, great. But I look forward to seeing the letters. Please send the letters to me. My email address is in the chat. Please take note of it before the session ends. All right. So I thank you all so much for being a very good class. You participated and I really enjoyed your company.